Okay, Shalom Aleichem, Rabbi Rakeffet. I'm interviewing here Rabbi Rakeffet, Rabbi Rakeffet, who was a Talmud Muvik, a prodigy student of HaRav HaRav Soloveitchik, and today is at the Gruss YU Kollel in Yerushalayim. We've had several occasions to speak together. So today, I'd like to focus on the idea of Yeshiva University, YU, and the whole idea of Chasidus at YU, its importance. Is there any reluctance on behalf of some of the administration? If there is, why? Since Rabbi Weinberger left when COVID started, it has not resumed as far as I know. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that. And I recall when you told me, must have been, probably about 10 years ago, that it was, I don't know if it was your original idea, but you were very much behind it. I don't know if you were satisfied the way it was done. So I wanted to hear about this from you. So please.
Okay, first of all, I just want to put a disclaimer in that you have to understand I've lived in Yerushalayim 54 years now, and although play a very big role in having brought YU to Israel, I think I published my 7th book, the whole story, how I got this. I was the Makah Patish in getting this campus from Mr. Gruss for YU. It was practically lost. It was practically in the hands of David Yellen's Teachers College. And you can read in Washington, my volume called Washington, published by the OU, the words I said to Mr. Gruss, and in the lobby of the King David Hotel, a poor kid from the Bronx, yours truly, and a multi-billionaire from Poland, America, Mr. Gruss, we fell on each other's shoulders and cried, and the rest is history. So I'm not totally up to date with what goes on in Washington Heights, but I can tell you the following. When I grew up in YU, it was definitely an anti-Hasidic feeling. The Rosh Yeshiva were, outside of one exception, Rabbi Gerstenfeld, who was Hungarian from the Chatam Sofer's part of Hungary. All the Rosh Yeshiva were Litvakim. And I remember Chabad was first getting started then, getting a lot of publicity. And it must be about 54, I would say, 53, 54. I wanted to spend the Shabbat and see what it's all about. And Chabad arranged. I spent the Shabbat in Chabad, which influences me until today in my thinking. I write about this in Washington too, but let me repeat it, that I asked my host, and I don't recall his name. I don't even know if I knew his name. I asked my host, you're all black here. You look to me like Agudat Yisrael. What's the difference between you and Agudat? And he said to me, I'll tell you the difference. If Mizrahi built 50 mikvot, Agudah would passel them. If Agudah built 50 mikvot, Mizrahi would passel them. If Agudah and Mizrahi each built 50 mikvot, the Rebbe would send the Yashikayach to both of them. And that story left a tremendous impact on my thinking, my teaching. I think I've conveyed it over the years to at least more than 100,000 students all over the world. Give you an example of what I mean anti-Chasidut. In high school, in MTA, Manhattan Talmudic Academy, there was a BTA and an MTA, Brooklyn and Manhattan. I, of course, was in Manhattan, and we wanted a shiur in Tanya. A number of us got together, and someone, I think his name was Rabbi Shem Tov, came from 770 and gave us a weekly shiur. Well, Rabbi Tendler found out, Rabbi Moshe David, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, and he abolished the shiur, wouldn't have it. He was then had a lot of power beyond the classroom. He was assistant dean And he abolished it. And that was the atmosphere, those were the feelings. Time has moved on, and I can tell you another story. You see, the Messianics have done harm to the image of Chabad, and this is part of life. I can tell you, I've heard Talmidim quote the Rav and speak about the Rav. You might think he was a faculty member of Chovevei Torah. The Rav was so distant from Chovevei Torah, like the North Pole is from the South Pole, etc. Messianicism, people criticize. I don't want to go into detail, and you are familiar with Professor David Berger's book, and elements of Christianity. At times, it's frightening. So about 20 years ago, in the Beis Medrash downstairs right here in Gruss, there were two visiting Rosh Yeshiva, very prominent Rosh Yeshiva from YU, and they were arguing with me about Chabad. And one of them said to me, I quote, every last Chabadnik is a messianist. And these are responsible people. The other person said to me, how can you have a noble attitude towards Chabad? They daven shalom bisman. And I told them, well, the Vilna Gaon fought that battle 200 years ago. I think we've lost the battle, although many Hasidic sects are now makpid on Zman. And we had a battle, and students knew about it, and they were going back to America and going to make the battle public. About a month later, I got a message that all is quiet. So my students complimented me and said, Rebbe, you influenced them. I said, I found out the real story. The OU said to these rabbis, if you're going to start questioning Chabad, we got to close the OU down. And the meaning of this comment is very simple, that a good deal, Chabadnik can go where no one else will go. And Hashgacha, we need people in China, in Thailand. I don't have to tell you what's going on. And Rabbi Menachem Genak said, if you're going to raise issues like this, we'll have to close the OU down. So the fight receded. But I think what's happened, and I think the Rav said it all, I was very fortunate to grow up and to be close to my Rebbe, Moria Rebbe. The many years I sat in front of him and next to him, actually, if you know the picture of the class of 1960, you see where I sat. And and then afterwards, we were in correspondence. And whenever I was in America, I would go to see my Rebbe. We had a very warm and I would say a fruitful relationship with a lot of pollinization. And the Rav grew up in Chaslavich. Those were his formative years. I trust you familiar with my 2 volumes on the Rav. And there was Chabad, there was the influence. And yes, we had a machlokes. If I can quote the Aruch HaShulchan with the famous story of the Tzemach HaTzedek, but the basic line is, when Chasidus began, there were great fears. The Gaon was right. They were going to certain extremes. You're familiar with Rabbi Chaim Dalfin's Nefesh HaChaim. And because the Gaon opposed them, it kept them in line. And 200 years later, you look at the Holocaust, the blood-mixed Chassidim, Mitnagdim, Litvisha, Pelisha, all our differences mellow. The same thing has happened in Israel. This country has been built block by block, rock by rock, brick by brick. It's an amazing story. Jews came in, refugees from all the Arab countries, displaced persons, survivors, broken in spirit, broken in health. And a miracle happened here that we put together a beautiful, beautiful country, a democracy, a Jewish democracy. That's the Declaration of Independence. And you know that the state reflects its citizenship. I have dreams that all of 770 would come in Aliyah, and all of YU would come in Aliyah, and all of Lakewood would come in Aliyah. And wow, would this be a Torah-ic environment? What a country. It's a democracy. Your ballot is your bullet. So in Israel, too, there has been tension. I needn't go into detail with the 1980s and Rabbi Shach and Chabad, and then Ger gets involved on the side of Chabad. And there has been tension. But over the years, it has been ameliorated. And everyone sees right now what's going on. We're fighting a war for survival. I will even say not just the state of Israel, it's Jewish survival. I mean, I don't want to repeat what you know about America and the Ivy League colleges, and a Jewish lady who's the president of MIT. And no, you can gas the Jews and kill the Jews, and the whole world will stand by and applaud Lo Aleinu, Lo Aleinu. So there's been a merging, a synthesis. You see the pictures on the battlefield. Chabad is all over the place. Some of them are soldiers. I just got a picture of a tank down in Azai. One of my grandsons, I have many grandsons at the front lines, many in Azai, many in Lebanon. And I just got a picture of a tank with a Mashiach flag on it. I said, all right, I would generally be bothered by the Mashiach flag, but if it's a tank shooting and the Mashiach flag helps, Adarabba v'Adarabba. So here too, there's been a bit of a synthesis, particularly in the religious Zionist world. See, that's fascinating that the yeshiva, there's now, for instance, this morning, here it's Friday morning, it's almost Shabbos, it's a Kurzer Freitag today. So on the way, I picked up one of the big rewards of living in Israel is you get a lot of freebies today. It wasn't like that 54 years ago, but we're a wealthy society today. So you get all kinds of parsha sheets. And I picked up this morning the parsha sheets. One of them is Karov Elecha. It's called in Hebrew an alone. I don't know. I translate a parsha sheet. I don't know how to give a better translation. A little booklet. Karov Elecha is all Chasidus, but Chasidus in the context of the religious Zionist world that has the yeshiva. And it's Rabbi Steinsaltz, the Zeichet Tzadik Levrach, one of the great people I knew in life. So they have him and Fabrengens and my Talmud, Yosef Mordechai Gachman, who arranged everything with you for this interview. Yomo descends from Colin Stalin Chassidim. So he goes occasionally to the Colin Stalin, the Rebbe here, originally from Brooklyn. I think he's a third generation Brooklynite, but he has he lives in Givat Zev. Actually, I have a grandson living right up the hill from him, and he has a big following. Yomo tells me, you see, Kipat Srugat, Hesda boys there, Yeshiva, Bnei Akiva boys there. There's I don't have to tell you the.
Okay, so why is it that they didn't rehire a Mashiach Ruchani?
So I just want to tell you, both here in America and in Israel, there's no reason to have enmity today. Today we can merge very nicely on that which unites us, which is Torah Hashem, and everyone has their own approach. I'm a Litvak, but I recognize the way I was raised. I cannot raise my students. I cannot raise my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren. They need something broader, something that works in the year 2025. Let me go ahead of time. I always don't want to say 2024, which is next week, because you don't open your mouth without thinking what's going to be a year from now. A Talmud Chacham has to be careful. So we merge. Now, what you're talking about with YU is I pleaded with them years ago, open up another morning program that they have I think it's 4 or 5 different morning programs, Yeshiva proper, the what became Teachers Institute, which became the Breuer School today. You have a beginners program, you have a Sephardic program, you have a minimal yeshiva program. Open up a Hasidic program. What does a Hasidic program mean? Exactly like Tomchei Tamimim that began in Lubavitch in let me get the date right, I believe it's 1897. You can correct me if I'm wrong. And the 6th Rebbe and the 5th Rebbe, and first of all, you went to mikveh in the morning. After that, the first hour you learn Chasidus. The rest of the day was Shas and Paiskim like any yeshiva in the world. Gedolei Yisrael issued from Tomchei Tamimim. So YU, the only expense involved for them would be to build a mikveh. Machon Lev, I'm talking to our neighbor half a minute away from here. If you go to their dormitory, it's a state-of-the-art mikveh because they have probably a few thousand Hasidic students. They go to mikveh every morning. Now, the difference between me and some of my Rebbeim, not the Rav, I had Rebbeim that would laugh a little if you said, "Darf gehen zum mikveh jeden Tag, jeden free. Bei uns ist nicht das sei," and they would laugh. I don't laugh. I admire people who will mikveh the tahara. I understand it's not like a woman going to it. It's not the same halachic inferences, but this is Hasidus, beautiful. What's wrong? So Mechon Lev has a beautiful mikveh. It's a showcase mikveh for men in their dormitory, one of their dormitory buildings. So why you would invest in a mikveh? The teachers they have, number of teachers today who have Hasidic overtones, they have what to give and who to teach. And you would have Chabadnikim, you would have Breslova. I got news for you. You'll have a few enlightened Satmar. I had a Talmud in the Kollel a few years ago who wore a Streimel and a Bekesher on Shabbos, an Einikel from Satmar with Ali Yichus, and a YU person with love and openness and Yirat Shemayim and Breitkeit, broadness from Satmar as well. Now, did my program get me where? Not entirely. Although the president today is my Talmud, Rabbi Weinberger, the Eish Kodesh, is my Talmud. He studied with me in BMT, Beit Medrash Torah. The president studied with me in Gruss YU Kollel. I can't tell you why Rabbi Weinberger left. What I was told from afar was that he was interested in going out on his own and building a number of institutions that would reflect his thinking. That's what I was told from afar. But YU retains him, his name remains, he occasionally comes, he gives a shiur, gives a talk, gives a shmuas, has a hitva adut. I can tell you here in Gruss that they try once a year when he's in Israel to have him speak, and we get a tremendous crowd of the students that are here in the post-high school year, the gap year, they call it. And I understand that on a postgraduate level, there is some connection with Chabad today formally, where they're getting a master's degree. This is what I've read from YU publicity. So there is at least the start of a relationship. This relationship should be enhanced. And in my humble opinion, I can tell you in my shul, where I've been davening since '69, a famous shul in Jerusalem. It's in Kiryat Shmuel, but no one knows what Kiryat Shmuel is today. I'll say Rechavia, because these were originally two different areas. Rechavia was established after World War I by the professors of Hebrew U and the Germans who were coming, and they wanted to be a totally secular neighborhood. A Jew by the name of Ettinger, who I knew very well, Rabbi Yitzchak Tzvi Ettinger, he came in 29, and said, I'm settling here. He was a milkman, Bucky and Shas. I never heard anyone who could give a better shiur than Rabbi Ettinger. And he was a milkman, made a living going around with a donkey with milk on the sides of the donkey in cans and giving you milk every morning. And he said, I'm settling here. The Arabs came and shot. He shot back. They never shot again. And that was the start of Kiryat Shmuel, named after Rav Shmuel Salant, Rav Harashi of Yerushalayim, which tells you what he wanted the neighborhood to be. Until the Six-Day War, there was a definite division between Rechavia and Kiryat Shmuel. Today it has merged, morphed into one neighborhood. The majority of the people living in this area are Shomer Shabbos today, both Rechavia and both Kiryat Shmuel. Now, Ohel Rivka was the first shul built. The cornerstone was laid in 1932. There's a famous picture of Cook came and spoke, and it's a big building. When I came in Aliyah, it was the third largest shul in Yerushalayim, Yeshurin, and then in Kiryat Moshe, the big shul, and then Ohel Rivka. And Litvakin Tahorim. The Rav is given it was a big Talmud Chacham, a Litvisha, published Sfarim, Rav Levine, a friend, a chaver, a chavruta in his youth with Reb David Lifshitz in Grodno by Reb Shimon Shkop, and the shul totally Litvish. Today, I always tell people, if the people I knew back in '69 came back to life and saw the shul, oh boy, would they be shocked. We have a side room, it's called the Shtibel. So the main shul has 2 minyanim, 6:30, 8:15. The side room, I think it's 10 or 10:30, Chabad. You should see the crowd they get into that side room, and then it overflows when the second minyan ends, which is shortly after they begin. And they Fabrengen, they got so big in our neighborhood that generally they walk half a block to Ol Aaron, which has a separate big Kiddush room, because there are too many people for Ohel Rivka for the Fabrengen. And they Fabrengen, and I see men, women, children. I also hear a world of English. And among them you see Yidden, Kedoshim, Tahirim, Lamdanim, Balei Tshuva. No, what's wrong? I think it's beautiful. And our whole neighborhood today has a synthesis. I've used the word, Chabad has fenced us in on all sides, their shtiblach. And I remember when they began the Chabad shtibel, right near the great synagogue, Rabbi Goldberg. Actually, his brothers listened to me on YU Torah, and I said to my wife Malka, who needs Chabad here? I mean, in Israel, either you're from or you're a Jew because you speak Hebrew and pay taxes to the government and you serve in the army. You don't know what Chabad has done. Purim. 9 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, until 4 p.m. in the afternoon, the Megillah is read on various locations in all of Rechavia. The Rechavia part, the Kiryat Shmuel part, you can't believe what happens. Chiloniyim, or people who are not yet from, let me use a more elegant language, who have not yet discovered the blood in their veins, walk by. They stop to hear the Megillah. It's an experience. Shofar, you don't know what goes on with the shofar blowing. 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Anyone who didn't hear shofar. Then I saw it with my own eyes on Rehov Chalap. I was maybe coming back from Mincha. I don't remember. I see a Chabadnik stopping people. Did you hear shofar today? And he's willing to blow 30 kolat. I don't know where he gets the energy. Kolat kavod. So to me, the beauty is we all have to, I put it this way. I wrote this in Washington and people have quoted it. Life is like a painting. Each one paints his own painting. Your colors, your ambitions, your abilities but the frame is very solid. That's Dvar Hashem Zu Halacha. And this is the way I view it. Baruch Hashem, Shmirat Shabbat, Tashra, Tarat Mishpacha. That's the frame. But each one is entitled to paint his own picture. Will YU eventually reach the decision and open up a full Hasidic division in the morning? I think so. I think it's inevitable because you all know the statistics in America. Intermarriage and assimilation are rampant. Your president's entire family is intermarried with Jews. Your Secretary of State, Jewish. Your former ambassador to Israel, Jewish. Everyone intermarried. They don't know what Shabbos is. They don't know what Kashrut is. They don't know what Taras Mishpacha is. Who's remaining strong and firm? All the statistics show the Hasidim. So YU, I hope, with foresight and vision, will open up and welcome with open arms. And I've told people in YU, you build a mikveh. Let it be on the front page of the New York Times. That mikveh cost you, let's say, state of the art, $50,000. That mikveh will ultimately bring in $5 million in donations. That's the way I view it. In my own classes over the years here, I've had Hasidim, and on Zoom today, and I have a tab, I call him the Tolner Rebbe, Hatale Yichis, a big London, sein Zayda yet knew was the Philadelphia Tolner Rebbe. All right, he chose to make a living as a scientist, a world-class scientist. He's now living in Israel many years. He doesn't miss a shiur. He's on the screen. It's Zoom. It's on the screen all the time. And I kibitz with him. I call him, the Tolner Rebbe, what's your question? Any questions? So when I open it to questions, and I've had Chassidim listening. I have correspondence from Ger, from Satma, from Square, Bells, and Colin Stolin, and these are all people listening to the shiur.
I have a question. If I may, for a moment. Why didn't the Rav overrule Moshe Tendler's stopping the shiur when you were 54 or whatever it was?
It's a good question. I can only tell you the Rav may have not known anything because these were high school kids. And it was like within the family. Rabbi Moshe Dovber Soloveitchik was then teaching a high school shiur, in addition to being assistant dean of the college. And we were only a handful. And I imagine it went quietly. You got to remember, YU is a big place. You got the high school, the college. And I mean, I'm talking going back to the 50s. You had the graduate school, Bernard Revel. They were talking about Einstein. Einstein begins a year, I think it actually begins in 54, if I'm not mistaken, if not a year later. And this was a small issue, but this was the atmosphere. This was the attitude.
Right. Now, most of the Rabbeim were Litvaks, right? They were Litvish.
Outside one exception, there was only Rabbi Gerstenfeld was Mugarisha, and I will not.
Right. So,
but they behind his back.
Okay. So Yeshiva University follows the way of Rabbi Chaim Dalfin. So, how do you reconcile Rabbi Chaim Dalfin's mahalach, his approach, and that of Chasidus, the Baal Shem Tov?
You know how much ink has been spilled on that? It's very simple. The Vilna Gaon signed Cherem after Cherem. You're aware of that. And pretty vocal Cherem. There's a whole 2-volume set published by a professor who I yet knew from Hebrew U. Valensky on the Haramim. Tell me, find one Cherem that Reb Chaim Voloshin signed. Never signed the Cherem. All the Sfarim that deal with it, both academia and both those that are more like on the art scroll type, they only can reach one conclusion, that he was opposed to some of the Hasidic practice, absolutely, nefesh chayim. But he never was opposed to Chassidim, never rebuked anyone, never told a Talmud, take off your gato, and these are absolute facts.
So do you envision, do you believe one day the Beis Medrash at Yeshiva will have like there is a mir today, 300, 400, 500 Hasidic Bacharim with payers, gekrazent to payers and all that? Do you think Yeshiva University will, the Beis Medrash will have one day half of the Beis Medrash Hasidim?
No, I don't think it's a problem. I'm the minority. I teach. I don't see a beard in my face. Rabbi Lichtenstein, I didn't see a beard in his face. We were raised we're in a time warp. We were raised in a different era. But sometimes I'm looking around at my class, I'm looking at the screen on the Zoom, I would say 60% have beards. I look at my grandchildren, I have to think hard, who doesn't have a beard, you follow? So time marches on. I have a Talmud Mufak who's a Chabadnik, Rabbi Moshe Wiener. You may know him from Coney Island. He's done very great achievements, and not only for Jews, but for the general community. He's been after his Rebbe. I was his Rebbe when he was a youngster. I put him on, I helped him immensely. And he wrote his Sefer, Hadrat Panim, is now 1,000 pages. And I debated with him, and I gave my point of view with my sources. He put it on Chabad Online, COL, with his picture with a beard down to his belt, and with my picture, and back and forth what we said. So I only have to tell you, it brings joy to life if our debate is within the framework of Torah Hashem and Yirat Shemayim. It's joy to life. But to me, there's something much more basic. Every individual has to express his own privileges, his own abilities, his own thinking. That's the picture you paint. But the Tavah Hashem, Zu Halacha, is the framework. And all my life, if you see, I have students, I write about this in Washington too. I've had a lot of wonderful experiences in life, hashgacha pratit. But one little story, it was Chol Hamoed Sukkos, and I'm walking in the Mea Shearim area, coming back with Rehov Strauss, and I meet another YU Musmach, no longer alive. I'll call him Jerry. I don't want to give his full names. And he meets me, and while we're talking, he's Jerry Amani, and we're talking, and along comes a young man with a long beard and payas and a kaftan and a bekesh mamish levush Yerushalmi eidach hareitit. And he comes running to me, Shalom Alecha, Ma'adim L'Simcha, Mori Rebbe, how are you? And it's my Talmud from BMT. And when he walks away, my colleague says to me, Arnie, how did you fail like that you have Talmudim who look like that? I said, you dummy, you should say, how did you succeed like that people who are Eidach Hareidit can embrace you and hug you and say, Shalom Aleichem, Mori Rebbe. And that's beautiful. That's my point of view. I hope they'll be listening in YU. The trouble is today they're busy with the Ivy League universities. YU has real problems because they're overwhelmed by applications today. And not everyone trying to apply is a Shemesh Shabbos. You follow me? And what do you do with Goyim who love Jews and don't want to be exposed to this attitude? Chaval, we didn't put you in the crematorium along with the 6 million. So YU has...
Right.
But
So what is we have another 4 minutes left. What about what is Rabbi Schechter's today's Rosh Yeshiva's attitude on this? Have you ever discussed it with him?
I discussed it and dialogued with him. I'll use that word. His attitude has, I hope, changed over the years. He met coming to Israel a few years ago. They were at the Chabad stand in JFK, and they spoke with him, and he signed up for the Torah that was being written, the names of the children. So that showed me he's starting to appreciate and understand Chabad. The messianicism is a problem. I thought as time would pass, the problem would ameliorate itself. It has not. It's there. 770, the base medrash and the signs that are up. I was there before Corona. I saw with my own eyes. But we have to accept it. And I don't want to be naive, but I trust that these people find that the Gemara in Sanhedrin and Chalik from among the dead. All right, just relax yourself and let's wait and see. I don't believe it. I have a different problem. If you look at the Rambam and Hilchot Malachim on Mashiach Tzidkenu, it's more than anything else. He has to be a warrior. I would say the Pashkana Rebbe in Gilo, who reached the rank of brigadier general in the Israeli army, Tat-Aluf, I would say he may be more of a candidate to be Mashiach than anyone else. So let's wait and see. All right, give it time. And B'ezrat Hashem, we have much more tangible problems right now. And halavai, I don't have to tell you, you don't realize the tension we live with here, because we all have. I am not going to give you a number, but between my brother and myself, we come close to Lamed Vav Tzadikim at the front lines right now. Mamish, the front lines. I have a grandson he sets up he's a doctor, every field hospital all the way down in Oz. He explained to me how it works. After the fighting stops, the army, the soldiers show him a building that they've cleared out, sets up a field hospital in the first floor of the building. Then when they move further, all the equipment has to be moved. They wait for the sign, this building is cleared, go in, it's safe, sets up the next field hospital. I have another grandson who's a tank commander. These are all tzaddikim. I mean, he teaches from Shalavim, and he told me already a month ago that he was all the way down at the Mediterranean, and he saw the pipes for the water that the army's going to put in to the underground tunnels. So I knew long before it was in the news, I knew what was going on. The Eibishter should help, and have a great Shabbat.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Rabbi Rakeffet, for your time. Yarech Yabam Mamlachta, you should be gesund, and you should see with your own eyes Mashiach Yerushalayim Ira Kodesh.
Amen. Amen.
Sudas Taivas. Take care.
Amen. Amen.
Take care. Take care.